Hello everyone, welcome back to Gelvin Valley, created by Wild Wes for Farm Simulator 15. I am standing here in game down on the bridge with the pylons overhead, looking again into the sky at the Milky Way, right over the main water table. The last couple episodes, we've been talking about modding things, and the most recent episode was on the water table, which is directly below me. It's rippling fine in the breeze here. And when rain happens, and hopefully this episode here will be able to test the new water planes that we put in, whether it's this one directly below me, or like one of them is over there kind of into the hillside, a stream that heads up. And there's water planes in there that'll rise up to show temporary flooding, temporary streams that dry out, if you will. So hoping to test that here, but for the moment was visiting about the main water plane and some of the frustrations that I had with it. I'm again going to hop out of the game. We're going to go to the editor. Well, this is kind of where we ended the last episode. And what I was visiting about was trying to figure out how to get the ripples to appear on more of the texture and not just the area sitting in the channel. That's kind of what I was trying to discover. And it was ripples show up in very weird places. Like I showed last time, this plane is massive. It goes clear over here. Here it shows up in a random place, where it wouldn't need to be. Nobody's going to see it. It's under the surface of the map. It also shows up kind of on the outer edge ring of the map, if you will. Here, there's a little path of water going all the way around the map, or around this ring, and I'm just puzzled. I have no idea why it's there, but it is. And so I've been on an explorer trying to figure out why it does the things that it does. Because the problem I was having is if I want this to flood, the water has to show in the field over here. If it doesn't, I kind of got a problem. And as I explained last time, when I tested this once, the water indeed rose, clear up to the bridge. But the only place it appeared to be water, the only place it had these nice pretty ripples in there, was above the old stream. Over here, it had the behavior of a water plane, meaning you could still float, but you didn't see the texture. So it'd be horribly confusing. And this was all in game. Obviously, we're in the editor at the moment, but I'm saying that's how it appeared in game when I tested it last time. So I've been trying to learn how the game knows where to put the water ripples. Something is telling it to do that. So where we left off was looking at these mask files, if you will. Oops. Oh, yes, of course. I had to make a screenshot for a thumbnail. So let me go back. Alright, now we're in the map. Let's go to the directory. Somehow it's using these things. So, this is just one thing here, and I realize this is intuitive, and I've always mentioned on these videos, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So it takes me a while to pick up on things. But I started to look at this. Okay, map 01.i3d. Hey, ring-a-ding-ding, that links with map 01i3d. Then I see, dbm. Well, my goodness, doesn't that sound like what we saw over here, depth blend map, dbm? So that surely must be what this is over here. And then water plane, of course, mirrors the name that it's literally given over here in the editor that we see in here in the scenograph. so I see the connection, and I see the connection to the shader. I see the connection to the normal map. I see the attributes given, and there's still this pesky line in here where, you know, this shows up in the editor. I don't think this shows up. This does not. None of these things show up in there. So somehow there's a connection going on here. I don't know what planar means, unless that just means it's a plane that is the type of surface. Anyway, I don't know what all this gobbledygook means, but I settled trying to look into depth blend map and trying to figure out what that was, because it's obviously connected. Well, so when you go to the internet, I did all sorts of different searches trying to figure it out, see what was there. I even, in desperation, went to, archive.org. I was trying to look up some information on some old closed forums. Was this one called Mod Portal? I forget what it was. And wouldn't you know, they didn't have any information for me. You know, when these old forums die, you know, the Internet Archive doesn't necessarily remember every page that it has on it. It may give you the front page, but it sure isn't gonna, you know, save data on all the forum posts where valuable information like this, you know, was discussed. Oh no. So that was kind of a dead end. I went to the Giants Developer Network. That can really be a good place to go to. There's lots of interesting modding information on there. Maybe someone asked a question, or they asked similar questions, or how to create a water plane. And so it was more of a Blender question. And plus, when you go, I like the Giants Developer Network, the GDN. But the trouble is they have a terrible search feature on it. You can hardly find, well, you find everything in the kitchen sink. It's virtually impossible to try to get a very specific search. So for that, I use Google a lot of times. You can search a site, and it'll be a better search than you can get on the site itself. But that really didn't avail anything. So finally, I did just a general Google search of the file name. I took map01.i3d.bbm.waterplane.png, and I Googled it. And here's something that happened. Always interesting what shows up. This was, it's obviously in Russian. Well, obvious to me. Maybe it isn't to someone that doesn't know Russian. So let me translate this here real quick. God, that's so helpful to have Google Translate to get it into something we can understand. So he's talking about the same deal. This looks very similar to what we have that we just looked at in our map i3D file. You know, it shows the ocean shader, the normal map. He's talking about what he's doing on a map, trying to create a new one, and getting those ripples, the water ripples, to appear where you want to have them be. And so he's talking here, so I understand. So of course, you can take the red line, which is where the depth blend map is talked about here. But that's where the adventures begin. I'm not sure what he means by that. He says it's needed for files like this, and this is what got I searched to come here to this obscure to me, Russian forum. Waves are drawn only in the white zones. Well, I pretty much had figured that out already. But like this fella here, you know, what did he say this? He says, but when you make your homemade water plane in the map, although written in the root folder of the map, but when you open it in the Giants editor, the water plane is transparent and without waves. You know, that's exactly the problem that I was having, although apparently for him there was no waves. I had some waves, some ripples, but I couldn't get it to put ripples where I wanted to have it. And he says, so far I've not managed to figure out what it is. But kind of what he's saying up in here is if you delete this particular line, you get rid of the depth blend, it will work. The reason apparently this is here was for gaming resources. Where does he say that? So that there are no waves under the terrain, less load on the computer. Okay, well that makes sense. But boy, it sure would be nice if they told us how this worked, you know? So it's intended to kind of save resources on the computer, but kind of as I explained before, you know, when I found this and I cleaned it all up to only show water certain areas, you know, basically clean it up to look like this, it didn't work. You know, it was stubbornly just the same as always when I opened it up. And I'm still not sure exactly how it all interrelates because the giants don't explain it, but I know that they're related. So this at least, you know, I did try an experiment, you know, in the i3D file, I commented out this particular line and saved the map. Now, if I were to close it, I think the way this works, it would totally delete this particular line. So I just left it in here so I could get it back. But for the moment, I commented it out. And sure enough, in here, just like the Russian guy said, there was ripples everywhere. You know, when I would come under the map, it was just a sea of water as far as I could see under here. So I was like, oh, cool. So that would have been a viable solution to this. But then the other part of me is, well, that isn't exactly how the game is designed. Maybe there is still an answer somewhere. And you know, I gotta say, sometimes there are problems you just can't fix. And at some point you throw it out or throw it on the pile of things you tried but didn't work. You know, every modder that's tried it has a pile somewhere in their garage of ideas that just didn't work and that they gave up on. Or at least I do. And so this could very well have been one of them, but I pushed just a little bit more. It's like there's gotta be an explanation. And I still don't know that I have an explanation, but I think I had a workaround. So I did some more searching, more. This time I went to the Giants. They also have a forum. And somebody had, this is kind of zoomed out, he created a water plane, or he exported it, and he was going to use it in the map, and his disappointment, the water texture disappeared. Same problem that this Russian fella had over here. And so he put it on the map here, and I forget how I found this, because he didn't have, I don't think he had the name, maybe he had the name of the water plane somewhere, I don't know. But this is all the same information the Russian guy had, and so you're just asking a question. Well, here, this guy here finally, very succinctly states exactly how to do it. But like so much of the time, you know, when someone gives an answer, they give you the answer, but they don't explain anything around it. And maybe he couldn't explain it because he doesn't know either. I don't know. Delete it, and then the Giants editor creates a new one when you open the map. Say what? So what that means is these files, if you delete them and then you open the map again, you know, just because you delete the texture, it still knows that the plane is sitting here. It's going to create a new one. And so then something clicked in my mind, you know, it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing, or the tail wagging the dog. What's happening here is the editor is creating this particular file. And it does it based on where the plane is sitting. And I'm just guessing here that what it does is it senses where this texture is open to the open air. And wherever it touches terrain, it says, here's an edge. We show water where it's open, we show the ripples, but whenever there's an edge, we turn the water off because we know it's going to go underneath and we don't want to show it. Ditto when it runs into these other textures. It is sensing that it's coming up to a barrier, so it's as leave the water on over here, or turn some water on, but turn it off here. That's the only thing I can figure out, because a texture bisects the plane, rather, the water plane bisects the texture. So I think it's even a little confused down here. Maybe it's wherever a texture bisects the plane, because this down here isn't even open up top. I mean, it's where we're under the surface, so I maybe said that wrong earlier. And explains why it's going to show water clear over here, with this outer ring. It detects something that bisects it, and it says, hey, we need to have a little bit of water here. Now, why it cuts the water off just after a short distance, it's just a little ring here, well, I am totally clueless. I have no idea why it does that, but there must be some mechanism that is doing that. So it is the editor, or some mechanism the editor is talking to, that creates this particular texture, not the other way around. And so what that ultimately means is you can modify this all day long, but it isn't going to go upstream to the editor. The editor has already saved how it should look, and you can modify this, but it isn't going to make any difference. So then I thought, well, how do I trick the editor? I can go in here and delete these files, which I did, or not delete, always save them somewhere else. You'll see I got a file here for old water masks, so I dumped them in there. Then there was nothing in here, so I deleted them out. Sure enough, I loaded the map up, and it created brand new ones. The nice part is it created only the ones that I needed. It didn't create several other. There were several others there. They must have been remnants and just weren't ever deleted out. But it only created the two that I needed. This is some little pond somewhere else on the map. I've seen it before, but I've mainly focused here on the main water plane, which looks like, of course, the one that we have in front of us. So, like I say, sure enough, I loaded up in here. Water appeared just like normal. And what it did, it created a brand new one based on what it knows from in here. So then I thought, well, if I need some flooding to appear later, then what I need to do, and I'll just show you here real quick, is I'm going to take the texture and I'm going to raise it to its maximum extent. Let me give it 6 meters. And I'll get down here. See, it's going to flood the sawmill over here. It's going to flood the road. Interestingly, it doesn't come over to this placeable area, really. It comes just above the bridge. You can see the ripples there. Don't see ripples over here yet, of course. But yeah, it's going to take a sizable chunk of the field. So then I said, okay, now I've got it up to its maximum extent. This is where I wanted to show ripples when it floods. So then I came back over here and I deleted these again. Then I hit save, and now it registered higher water than normal. So it had other areas where it had to put the ripples. Now, instead of bisecting it down here, it bisected it way up over here. So it knew that it had to put ripples all along here. So, of course, and the next time I opened the map, the plane was up here. There was beautiful ripples all over it. So I took the plane, I stuffed it back down in the trench where it belongs. And the funny thing, and I saved it again, but this time I didn't delete these files. I just saved it. And the interesting thing is, the program made no further changes to this. So I think this is kind of a one-time setup that somehow registers deep in the game. I don't know where the true file or the real file is stored. But that's kind of what I did to trick it, to show water ripples where I needed them. And I just kind of wanted to walk through this in case anyone else ever wrestles with water planes. It's not you. It's hard to find information out there on what to do. But apparently to reset the thing, put the water table exactly where you want it in the map. Then come over here, delete the water planes out, totally delete them, and then save the map, and it will give you brand new ones. Kind of cool. But anyway, that's what it looks like now, and this is the flood zone that appears. Even down to this little teeny tiny, this is that ditch kind of up there that I pointed out that will also flood. This over here, I wonder if that's the, I don't know what that is. Is that the sawmill? Maybe? Yeah, and this is the field. It's still the exact opposite of what I'd expect. So the game is doing something funky with it where it moves it, flips it or something. Anyhow, that's enough of all that. I just wanted to share how I had to trick the game to get it to do kind of what I wanted to do. Very frustrating, but I'm glad I was able to find kind of a solution. You know, now I think you saw a little bit earlier when we raised the water plane, it still has ripples only in the trench. So it's kind of like it tells it in the current session of the editor that that's what to do, but it still remembers all those old ripples over there. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's go to the game with the remaining time that we have, and let's test it out. Alright, so it's nighttime. Let's get to broad daylight. Just for kicks, I'm going to fast forward time here. We're going to get to about 7 a.m.-ish. Okay, 7:05. Now, I want to make it so we can fly, so let's make it, we'll make it so we can fly. Now let's start a range. Yes, start rain is a command, and I think if you just start a rain, it'll do it for 1 hour. Let's give it a whopping 8 hours. So that's gonna put us to about 3 in the afternoon once it gets started, give or take. I mean, it's kind of a loose thing, if you will. All right, added a rain with this duration. There's probably another parameter you can do on that, but now it's going to go through what's called rain fade. I think it's a 20-minute period, 15-minute period. I don't know quite what it is. Let me just fast forward slightly. You'll see the sky. There we go. Now we're hitting into the rain. Let's fly up in the air a little bit. Now, the way this was set up is a half an hour of rain will take place before any of these side streams, you know, start showing water. So right now it's dry. So let's just put it on a fast forward time and we'll see when the water level rises. I don't know if we'll be able to see it coming. I think it takes a full half hour before anything will come up. So we should start, there it is. We start to see little bits of water. You can see kind of right there in the middle of the screen. And there's more and more textures now that you can see as it's raising out of the ground. And I think it's over an hour it raises the full 1.5 meters. So I would venture to guess that it's at its full extent. So let me just take it back. We'll go on regular time. But there it is. You know, we were fast forwarded on the time. There is our stream kind of coming up. And after, oh, look at that. We are already flooding heavily over into the field. So there is our beautiful ripples already taking up part of the field. And this, of course, it's going to rise 6 meters. It's nowhere near done rising. So it's going to do it over the period of time while it's raining. I believe 1.5 meters per hour. So it's going to take a while longer to flood even more. But for the moment, it appears it's come up 1.5 meters. And you may recall the parameter that I put on it was it couldn't start rising until an hour, I believe. So a little bit after we started seeing the streams, kind of just for some timing. So I'll maybe just kind of fly a little bit up the channel, if you will, just to kind of show it here. But this is kind of what I did. And like I say, it was very tedious. I got to see a lot of things that Wes put into the map where, like I say, I was kind of discovering new things that he put in that I hadn't seen before. Because, you know, realistically speaking, it's not often you're by these. I got to keep rising to get above the surface. It's so steep in here. You know, for example, one of the things that I've never noticed before, see this grate? And this is one type of several different grates that he used in here. You know, that makes perfect sense. If you have all these fenced in for, because one of the premises of the map, if I recall correctly, is all these fields are kind of grazed out. You know, the middle part of the field, there's no grass, so presumably there was cattle or sheep on it. And now they're not here. But if you had animals in here, the fence would keep them back. But what do you do when there is a stream? So you got to have something else to kind of keep the animals in, but let the water through. So there's a little extra long bits there and a grate of some kind, so the animals can't get through, but the water can't. Or at least that's my understanding. You know, just being a dumb yank. But anyway, here it continues. Some of these, this particular one interacted with a ditch, so I kind of was forced to also go up the ditch a little bit, and then I just ran it into the ground up here. In theory, there's ditches everywhere. If I was really ambitious, I could do all of them, but let me tell you, it was plenty exhausting just doing these 7 streams. There's another grate. You know, and let's check something out. I was pleasantly surprised that this is so little drain on resource. 60 FPS. I remember I don't have a very strong computer, so I was just amazed because I figured once all these water planes get up in here and they start going, it's going to make me have a slideshow for FPS, but I was pleasantly surprised that wasn't the case. So continue the stream here, and this one, there's another grate, goes clear up into the mountains here, and I just, on all of these, I took them up as far as I figured I reasonably could. And this one, there's kind of the beginning of that particular one. So as you see here, kind of where the icon is sitting, right to the left of field 38. That is the stream, you know, that we traced coming up there. And let me take that down. I have the teleport mod. Let me come over to this one here. Alright, so I think I just got to get back up. Here it is, crashing into the water. And this one here, you know, typically we're driving down through here. I had to do a little bit of modification, not only here, but in a few other places as well. Modification of the ground to get this to look, to get the water to flow, because everything's going to work off of elevation in here. You know, I see a little problem here too with this texture, this middle one. I think some of it has to do with the siding. It's the scroller shader that takes the water texture and runs it for the river effect kind of. And that one kind of right in the middle, I think, was scaled differently. So I'm wondering if that needs to be fixed, you know, to make it look a little more fluid. But anyway, this one here kind of rises on up, does the same thing in between our fields. And it was, man, I'm having deja vu looking at this. It was, it was a lot of work putting these in. And there's a part of me that would love to talk to Wes to see how he built some of these in the first place. Because I gotta say, that had to have been a boatload of work too. You know, there's no magical tool that I'm aware of. Although I think I heard of one, maybe erosion. There is in the editor where you can get some erosion effect on hills. But otherwise, I anticipate he was just cutting those ditches in, and it was just a lot of hard work for him too. And then to come along with, these water tables. I went underneath bushes. I did everything. I didn't cheat. So if you go inside those bushes anywhere in here, you're going to find the water table. Like if we go in here, there it is. It's just, even if you can't see it, it's in here. Just like we can kind of see as I go through there's the belt. Yeah, this one I had to do some work. I haven't driven over this before. This is just going over the main road through here. Had another ditch that it interacted with that kind of backed in over here, I believe. Yep, there's some coming in there. So I tried to incorporate that. I did learn something here too in this particular area. Wes, if you see this, he maybe knows this already. But I had to cheat a little, kind of on this area here. It looks, this is where it plays tricks with your eyes. It looks like a slope that kind of comes on downhill. But what I learned is the road is a high point, and it decreases in elevation over here, even though we apparently have a stream running through it. So for a while I did the best I could to keep the stream level, but then eventually I had to give up, and what's really happening in here is the stream is kind of going uphill in a few places. I don't know that anybody will notice particularly, but it's something whenever you set this up, and it requires elevation, to get all these textures to work. Here it's going uphill. It always was easy as, going up a hill like this, to put this in and line all those textures up. But when it goes downhill, that's, when it's a little harder or whatever. So we're coming over kind of by the sheep, and here it is, kind of come along the pin. Anyway, I think, we just had the bell go. I'm going to chop the episode here so they don't get too long. So thank you for coming along, trying to explain and showcase kind of these the water work that I did. So thank you for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.